everybody. Welcome to Labster's NABT 2021 workshop presentation. My name is Christopher Connor. I'm the Director of Institutional Relations for Canada here at Labster. And I'm joined here with S.J. Bolton, who is our Global Curriculum Lead and Labster Scientist on roster. So welcome you guys to our presentation. A quick overview of what we'll be covering today. We'll go through a quick, introduction of SJ and I, and then we'll have an overview of what is Labster, what do we do, what is a little bit of our background and the genesis of Labster, where did it all kind of come from. What are the virtual lab simulations that we provide and offer, and what, how are they going to present to you as faculty, students, etc. And then we'll talk a little bit. SJ will talk a little bit about how the simulations are made, what kind of thought process is brought into which simulations are developed. What is the process to developing these wonderful resources that we provide, and then take you through a simulation that we've developed here for this presentation called the Gram-Stain, which I'm sure you guys are very familiar with yourselves. And then we'll also give you the opportunity to kind of go through and play along as well with SJ. We'll leave some time at the end for questions and answers, and then wrap everything up with final remarks. So. As I mentioned, my name is Christopher Connor. I'm the Director of Institutional Relations for Canada. I've been at Labster for almost 2 years now, and I work with all of our corporates, school board, university, and college partners throughout all of the territories and provinces of Canada. Esther, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself as well?
Sure thing. So my name's Sarah Jane Bolton. I generally just get SJ because it's much easier to shout when something's on fire. My background is in higher education. So I used to, I'm a former lecturer from Newcastle University here in Newcastle in the UK. And one of the reasons that I joined Labster was because I wanted to take advantage of an opportunity to impact not just the 1,200 students that came through my lectures every year, but really make an impact for educators like yourselves that are trying to find novel and innovative ways to shape and upgrade your learning in that space. So I really hope that the work that I do and that my team does and that everybody within our content circle does is having a positive impact for you, especially in these really strange times post-corona. So that's me.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up. I know when I was a returning student back in 2010, I was going for a master's in anesthesiology, and I remember thinking, gosh, I really wish I had some help with chemistry and organic chemistry. And then when I saw Labster, I was like, if I had this in Chem and OChem, I would have gotten an A. As it was, I got a B. Okay, so, just a little bit, I don't know if anybody's ever heard of Labster's story before or known a little bit about us, but I just want to give you guys a little bit of a background of Labster and what is the thinking, or how did this kind of come about? But we have, as some of you may well know, or if you've heard of us, you understand that we have virtual science labs that cover a wide variety of disciplines. And we started out as an outreach project at the University of Copenhagen to help solve some of the challenges that the co-founder was seeing while he was teaching some of his intro science courses. And what I've heard before is that we describe the back row of his lecture hall as a shoe factory, and it's where all the loafers, the flip-flops, and the sneakers hung out. And I've heard that before from some other teachers, and it was about trying to engage more of those students, get them a little bit more motivated, and kind of bring them into participating and becoming more interested in the courses that he was teaching. But I think that many teachers around the world sort of deal with this every day in their classrooms, including motivation, retention of knowledge, and he also felt that some of the lab teaching methods were a little ineffective. They were expensive, and in many cases, severely limited by time and resources. So this sort of led him to develop Labster as a way to get the class on the same page and engage the students in theory and techniques, but also give the instructors a better idea of how students are actually mastering the material. Since COVID, we have over 3 million students currently using Labster in their courses to some degree. And I think that, at baseline, what we all sort of understand about simulations is that, there's the advantages that we can simulate any real world environment, whether you're collecting rocks on Mars or if you're like me and you go through lab safety programs, sometimes you set the lab on fire or you blow the oven doors off, but all good. It's within the simulated environment. And it's the benefit here is that you have the repeatability to be able to do things that you normally wouldn't be able to do over and over and over again, whether it's like the lab safety, or if it's helping students in higher education or education in general master the techniques, understand the protocols that you're trying to teach to, and give them a different perspective of what they're seeing that they normally wouldn't be able to in a real world scenario. Again, giving the students the ability to retry and experiment in a safe, cost-effective environment on their own terms. And I think that, with some of these scenarios, we're able to help someone to solve some of the biggest challenges facing science education today. Many of these including knowledge gaps. I know myself, I just mentioned that I was a returning student back in 2010. I was going for a master's in anesthesiology. And so I didn't seem to have too many problems with some of the other big science courses that I was taking: anatomy, physiology, pathophysiology, microbiology. But for some reason, when I got to chemistry and organic chemistry, that really was the toughest year of my life. And I found myself on that, lower end of the knowledge gap because I just didn't have the familiarity. It had been some time since I had been in a lab, in a chemistry lab, or thought about the concepts and the theories of chemistry. And so there was a big intimidation factor going into lab, knowing that I didn't know anything, not even knowing what I didn't know. And I immediately recognized when I saw Labster that this would have definitely benefited me during that year. But there's other issues that and challenges that teachers are dealing with even today. Giving students access to more lab space, dealing with disengaged students, having students come to lab or lecture that are not prepared or less prepared than they should do or should be. Or maybe a lot of teachers that I've talked to are dealing with increased learning loss due to pandemic and poor conceptual understanding. So I think that if you guys want to, in the chat, drop some of these challenges that you also are dealing with in the chat as well, please feel free. And also, please feel free to drop any questions in the chat that we can answer later on. But I think that some of these are resonating with many of the teachers and profs and administrators across around the world. Now, there's a lot of research as well into how effective is Labster. How impactful is it to the students when you're able to integrate Labster into your courses. A major study from Nature Biotechnology showed that there was a big increase in knowledge for students using a virtual lab compared to students that just use the traditional material in lecture. The biggest impact was when educators use Labster in combination with lectures, that it resulted in about 101% increase in learning outcomes compared to lecture only. So they not only demonstrated an ability to significantly increase students' knowledge. In a retention test conducted 40 days later, we found statistically significantly that students retained all knowledge gained as a result of the experiment. And we've seen this again and again in peer-reviewed research and case studies, and I can share some of that with you if you're interested and want to reach out, and I can definitely send that over to you. So what I can do here is I'm going to go ahead and now hand this over to SJ, okay? And SJ is going to show us a little bit about how Labster simulations are made, and talk a little bit about the team as well. And let me give you the mic. Go right ahead.
Oh, thank you, Chris. if you could just bring the slides back up, that would be ideal. Thank you. And I'll take over when we start playing the simulation for sure. So if you could help, that would be great.
Okay, I handed you control. Do you have control of the?
No, sorry. Okay, no problem. Anyway, let me tell you a story. So, I will just quickly give this back to Chris. There we go. There we go. Brilliant. Chris should be able to put the slides back up now.
There we go.
Right. You might notice, sorry about that, folks. You might notice a slightly fresher faced SJ in one of these panels. This was me when I was a budding PhD student trying to get my PhD in cellular pathology many moons ago. I shall not tell you how many moons ago. But one of the things that really inspired me to get involved with teaching was the opportunity to help people that I saw struggle in the labs with things that I found super interesting. So one of those things was cell culture. I was also really interested in enzyme kinetics and spectrophotometry. Incidentally, all simulations that we have in our catalogue. But it was really that opportunity to be playful with the techniques that I found to be one of the most useful ways to help people develop their skills. Amy was a collaborator in the lab who did used to look after my cells, and I left my cells and asked her if she could feed them, and she told me that she spat in the flask. And while this is very mean, and thankfully she didn't actually spit in the flask and my cells were very live, these little moments, these little surreptitious moments were some of the most memorable. And in fact, leaving these little notes and leaving these little small interactions is something that I've tried to bring into the simulations that we're developing. Little surreptitious notes left for people in the labs, also just small interactions with Dr. Wan, who's our lead educator in the labs to simulations. All of these little surreptitious moments can sometimes make the experience a little bit more memorable and help people remember, why we do not spit in flasks or why we do not contaminate our cell cultures. Allowing things to go wrong and allowing people to fail safely with those techniques in the simulated environment really helps to consolidate good practice. And also, I'm sure you know what it's like for somebody to tell you, don't do that because this bad thing will happen. And you're like, will it though? Will it really? You can find out for yourself in a virtual lab. And you can have that mistake, have that little fail be between you and Dr. Wan and no one else. Your course mate doesn't need to see you do the protocol wrong in the lab. Your lecturer doesn't have to observe you perhaps working in a slightly unsafe manner because you kept it contained within that lab and because you were given the opportunity to interact with something that was designed to allow you to make those mistakes in a safe way. So when we're thinking about developing our virtual labs, there's a whole team that comes together. We have our scientific content creators, all of which are, they hold advanced degrees, master's and PhD level qualifications in their specific fields across chemistry, biology, now earth sciences and physics too, as we head into some new directions in higher ed. We also have games designers now within our squads who are very brilliantly minded at pulling behavioural interactions together to affect good knowledge transfer. So between the scientific content creators, our content devs that are coding and making sure our platform works effectively, the game designers, a team of artists, and also our pedagogy guides who are there to help us understand what's new and what's best within teaching in digital environments. Pulling all of those elements together ensures that we can create an experience that is founded in solid instructional design criteria, that is fun, that's engaging, and that helps people remember, science is great, science is awesome. And it really holds their attention for the time that we're trying to affect this good knowledge transfer. So good design is at our core, scientific excellence is at our core, and we feel that we pull those elements together really effectively. Let's go to that next slide, Chris. What we are going to do now is I'm going to give you an opportunity to experience some of that brilliant design that we've got through playing a simulation called the Gram Stain Identification Sim. I'm sure that you've all probably heard of the gram stain, may have even used it in some of your teaching yourself. What will happen is the link to play the simulation will appear in the chat just for you. I would encourage you to get it loaded now just because the simulations can take a little time. Best practice, maybe split your screen. If you've got two screens, great. Keep me and Chris on one screen and open the simulation in a clean Chrome or Firefox window on the other screen. Or you can kind of split your screen, so have Chrome in one half and have us in the other half. Close everything else down because you're giving yourself the best opportunity to have the best experience with this new simulation. So if you've got a load of tabs in Chrome, consider closing a few so that we can take full advantage of the RAM of your computer. So hopefully that will appear in chat in just a moment. I encourage you to get that
there
loaded.
now.
Please do not press start. Promise me folks, that you will not press start until the moment. What will happen when you press start is you will hear music and you will hear our friendly drone, Dr. One, start talking to you. And that is going to be a bit of a mind blast when you've got me and Chris in one ear and Dr. One in the other. She does talk a lot. Very good, scientifically relevant and accurate talk, but a lot of talk. So when we come to play the simulation, I'll show you how to turn that sound off. I encourage you to do that so you can both listen to my kind of like talk through the simulation without being too distracted by Dr. One and the music. Some people really love the music in the lab. We used to get some feedback sometimes, like, where can I buy that music? It's like, really? But maybe I'm just being cynical because that's
You have a Labster playlist.
Should we? Oh, let's, Chris, let's. I love that idea. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Brilliant. So, a little bit more about the simulation. Gram stain sim. The goal of this simulation is to introduce the technique of gram staining and also help the students consolidate knowledge around why bacteria stain in two different ways. What is a peptidoglycan cell wall? Why does it have an impact on how the bacteria stain using this technique? We're going to do some actual staining. We're going to watch some animations that kind of demonstrate and illustrate some of the hard to visualize concepts around the peptidoglycan wall and why we have two different colors come about with the technique. And we're actually going to use, you can see just in the screenshot here, and we're going to use that Leica microscope and some actual images that we acquired from stain samples to really investigate the technique and see what the bacteria look like in a wet lab. So if you were doing this on a Leica microscope, this isn't an illustration, this is actual microscopy images. Overall, our goals are to get the student to relate how the bacteria is structured to the staining outcome and be able to use that information to make a differential analysis of what an unknown bacteria is, whether it's gram positive or gram negative. So hopefully you've got some good loading going on, and I think it's about time for me to load up that sim and show you what it's all about. Is that right? I think so. Chris, let's go to the next slide and find out.
I think we're ready.
Let's do it. Oh, I'm so excited for this bit. Right, okay. I will take the screen off you, Chris, and I will take us through the gram stain virtual lab. Any questions that you've got, pop them in the chat. I might have to ask you. I'm going to ask you what answer I should put in for the quiz question, so be sure to tell me what you think the answer is, and we'll get through it together. Awesome. Okay, right. Let's go to gram stain. Can you see my screen? Chris, is it showing okay?
Yes, I'm seeing it. Yes, that's correct. If anybody is not able to see it, just please drop us a heads up in the chat.
I think we're looking good. Okay, I can see also that the link was shared. Hopefully you've all got that loaded. Top notch. This is exciting stuff. Oh, I hope you enjoy this simulation. If you do, let me know. If you don't, also let me know. And I can take that feedback back to our team. It's something we do a lot. We try and collect as much feedback as possible on our released content so that we can iterate and work to improve it in the future. If not that individual sim, the next sim that we make that's related. So it's all continuous learning here at Labster. It's actually one of our core ideals. Okay, let's go to it. So I'm going to press start. You might hear some Dr. One voice. Maybe you won't. If you've just pressed start, if you raise the lab pad here and you just click on this microphone icon, you can turn off the music, the sound effects and the voice. and that should make it easier for you to listen. But if you want to know what Dr. Wan's saying, all you have to do is raise up the lab pad and you'll see all of her conversation just here on the lab pad. Okay, hopefully you're following along with me just fine. Just checking the chat. Yep, we're all good, hopefully. Brilliant. Okay, let's continue. So if you've never used Labster before, or if this is something that you're implementing with a student cohort for the first time, one of the really cool features of the lab is every simulation comes with an inbuilt tutorial. So I'm not going to do it right now because we only have so much time, but if you were to click on yes, please walk me through the lab pad features, what we would get is a little tutorial on how to play a simulation and how to use the lab pad and how to make certain interactions. This can be really, really valuable just to help students get going, but they don't often think to play it the first time. So I would encourage you to tell students, play the tutorial the first time. I'm a pro, so I'm going to go ahead and click on no thanks, and we're going to start the first mission. Dr. Wan gives you a thumbs up. I love Dr. Wan's thumbs up. It makes me feel good. Okay. So our commitment to kind of basic lab safety is hopefully apparent in every simulation, but often the first task, if we're going to go into the lab, is just to pop on a lab code. Pop on a lab code, continue, pop on a lab code. And then to head on into the lab. As I'm sure you're okay with too, we put on our lab gloves when we start doing something, when we need them, and not before. So we're going to head on into the lab, and Dr. Wan is going to introduce us to the tasks. So she's telling us we're in the laboratory. We're going to learn a little bit about the Gram stay. She checks our knowledge. One thing that we like to do, or one pedagogy, core pedagogy that we like to subscribe to at Labster is this idea of the events of learning, Gagner's 9 events of learning. So we often do a little bit of a recall or check in with where our students are before we progress them through the lab. So in this case, what is the Gram stay method? We want to differentiate into 2 groups. Dr. Wan celebrates. Oh, I love that smile. That smile. So spot on. Let's go. I got it right. We have a little bit more information we can read through. We've got some images just to help. It's good to note, we've recently done a lot of work on our platform, and we're starting to offer all of our simulations with an accessibility mode. What that means is that you can interact with the simulation using a keyboard, and it's screen reader enabled. Not all of our simulations are offered in this way, but it's something that we're working towards. So if this is something that interests you, get in touch with us. We can totally tell you more about it. But what it would be is that you'd be able to have readout text for these images, so everybody can have a commensurate experience with the lab. Okay, so what are the names of the 2 bacteria resulting from the Gram stay method? I'm going to go with Gram positive, Gram negative. Excellent, yes. Winning. I'm going for 100% here, Chris, I'm just saying. Right.
I think you got this.
I've totally got this. I may or may not have made this simulation. I might be biased. Okay. Pink. What did we do? And this is something that's helpful for the student too. If you've forgotten what you've just learned, we can always go to the theory and we can take a little look. So bacteria that have a thick peptidoglycan layer retain the crystal diet and are said to be Gram positive. So that's purple. And they don't retain it. Okay, that must be pink. So we can go down. Yep, am I right? Yep, Gram negative appear pink, Gram positive appear purple. Excellent. I've got some illustrations. I'm okay. I've checked in. Go back, answer that question. Gram positive are purple, negative are pink. Yes, nailed it. But that theory is there to kind of help students that might have gotten lost, or if they need a little bit more information, or if they just want to check in, they can go to that theory, they can update their knowledge, or just get a quick little revision and feel confident moving forward. Just to say as well, there's also a media tab where lots of the images that are associated with the simulation are just sitting here that they can go back to, so you can see our microscope staining image that we've encountered already. The ubiquitous safety hazard symbols is in almost every lab, just as a reminder, take care with your chemicals. These ones we'll encounter as we go through the simulation, but I just wanted to highlight that the media tab's there. The other one to be aware of is the mission. So if you need to go back and redo something that you've done wrong, you could just click. I'm not going to right now because we're short on time, but we can just click and go back to an earlier point in the sim and play from there. Okay, so let's crack on. Let's go to the next mission. I love it. Right, so you know what the Gram stain is, what the outcomes can be. Let's go. Teleporting. This is animation time. This is fun. So, One of the really difficult things about microbiology from my perspective is that we're talking about things that we can't really see very well with the naked eye. We have to use a microscope, so we don't always get the opportunity to see what's happening in the moment when we're doing procedures like staining. And that can make it quite abstract for students. So what we're using animations for in this way is to visualize something that we can't necessarily see or do in the lab at all. So we've got bacteria, we're applying crystal violet to it. We're looking at the structure of the peptidoglycan wall, and we can see all these little crystal violet molecules are embedding. Yes. So we're seeing they're positively charged when poured over the bacteria. They attach to negatively charged bacterial structures, such as the teichoic acid. So we can see we are purple. Brilliant. However, over here, with our gram-negative, they're also attaching like lipopolysaccharides and peptidoglycans. So both purple. When we've applied the crystal violet, both are purple. Students might be like, well, how do we get to pink? This is weird. We're going to get you through that. So we see what happens when we add iodine. Let's take a look. So we can see our little iodine molecules. What will be happening now is Dr. Wan is reading out over the top of this. But we can just look here to read if we want to. Some people don't like to have the voiceover all the times. So we can see the iodine molecules are interacting with the crystal violet and they're trapping it. So we can see difixator or mordant. What happens next? So they're purple after we've added iodine. Let's see what happens with alcohol. So I'm going to pick the ethanol bottle and we're going to wash the bacteria now. Let's have a look at these gram-positives. So put the ethanol on, shrink. So the alcohol shrinks the thick peptidoglycan, causes complexes to become tightly wrapped. So the dye is retained. Brilliant. And how about gram-negative? Got the alcohol going on, the ethanol. Ethanol on. Shrink. But the outer membrane is dissolved, the layer is disrupted, and stain escapes. So at this point, we should have a purple and a colourless bacteria. Brilliant. Okay, so how does one end up pink? How does one end up pink? We'll find out. Let's add the saffron. So we've got the dye molecules going on. And what happens then? Okay. Going into the outer layer, going into the membrane. But it's already stained purple by the darker crystal violet, so it stays purple. So that purple colour is more obvious than the pink colour. But because the purple has been washed out of this cell, right, okay, that's why it's pink. Because there's no purple there to overcolour it. Right, okay, brilliant. So the saffron binds, colours it pink, there's no purple there, so this becomes pink and this appears purple. Lovely. So through these animations, going through everything step by step, so showing where there's retention, showing where there's a loss of colour, this can really help students like visualize that process in real time and really understand like why we have this differential stain. Oh, what have we got here? I was just checking. There we go.
It's also the importance of not having a colorblind doctor.
Pink and purple.
Exactly.
The nice thing about that as well is the animation in accessibility mode. There's a descriptor, there's a voiceover that describes what's actually happening in the animation alongside what Dr. Wan's kind of talking. So Dr. Wan will talk and explain the process, and then there's an audio description of the action that's happening so that we can make sure everybody understands what's happening in the moment, even if there's a visual impact for the student. Okay, so now we're going to consolidate that knowledge with a quiz question. Back to the lab, what a journey. Let's do a recap. What are the 4 reagents used? Anybody want to help? Well, crystal violet, that's the purple. We had saffronin, that's the pink one. So it must be one of these 3 answers. Then we had iodine. Yep, so it must be one of these 2. Is it 95 or 90% alcohol? Is it this one? Yes, brilliant. would be really embarrassing if I got these wrong, I'm just saying. So what reagent is used is the counter stain. So in the animation, we learned that the pink applies afterwards and the purple is beforehand, so it must be the safranin. Excellent. I'm doing good. Okay.
Do you have these written down somewhere, or are you?
No, I just taught the drum stain for like 4
No.
years.
Okay. All right, just making sure. Just making sure. Okay.
I promise. So now that we've gone through this process of unpicking what's happening in the gram stain, we're now going to apply it and see if we can analyze some samples. So I'm excited for this bit. We're going to go to the microscopy bench. We've already got our sample in the hand. And so what you're seeing now is a tooltip. So whenever I take the mouse and I hover over an object, the tooltip will tell me what's on it. So I can see I've got positive control, negative control, and a sample. CF sample. And then we've got the microscope over here, Dr. One over there. You can also get Dr. One to tell you a joke, but I'll leave that for you to find out how to do when you get to play with this lab afterwards. Okay, so it's telling me place the slide on the workbench, and I can see there's this little hologram here that's helping guide me where to put it down. Pick up the water bottle. This little 3 pincer thing here, this little hint, is something students sometimes get stuck or forget where they're going, especially if they're distracted or if they return into a simulation after taking a break. So those hints can just help highlight what interaction it is that we're looking for. So pick up the glass water bottle and add 1 drop of water to the slide. So I'm going to click on the slide. Brilliant. Back on the bench and add a cover slip. Okay. All parts of the process that I would have to do if I was visualizing or looking at this slide in the wet lab. Brilliant. Place the slide on the microscope stage. I've got my hint to help me here. You can also see the emphasis, that slight pulsing of light. There we go. Pop that in there. Yeah, man. In you go. There we go. Excellent. Lower the lab pad or click view image to see the results of your gram stain. So it's telling me far left is positive control, far right is negative control, and the CSF sample, so a patient sample, is sitting in the middle. Okay. Why do we use positive and negative controls? To verify the stain was performed properly? To determine? Well, I know that my positive and negative controls tell me something about the experimental procedure, so I'm going to go with this one. Okay, yes. So we should know what positive looks like, we should know what negative looks like, and if we processed our sample properly, that positive and negative should show up as I expect. So let's see. Brilliant. Select the positive control. So I'm going to click here. Look at that, so I can see it. And I can use these buttons here just to like move around as I would with the screws on a regular microscope stage. So because we're visualizing on the screen, we're trying to approximate that experience. You can also see, hopefully, there you go, 1,000 times. Brilliant. Determine if the positive control appears gram positive, purple, or negative pink. So I can clearly see that this is purple. Again, if this had readout text on it, this would describe it to me. The audio description would be there. Raise the lab tab when you're finished. You ready to continue? Yes, I'm finished. Let's carry on with the experiment. We try to make time for students to really observe things in their own time where we can. So right now, looking at that image of the bacteria on the microscope screen, it might be the first time that they've actually been presented with the ability to look at an image like this. So why not make time for them to really sit with it rather than just rushing them through the task? So these opportunities for observation, to me, are really important and something that we encourage within the Labs to SINS. Okay, so does it look good? Yep, everything looks purple, gram positive. Dr. One tells terrible jokes. I am positive that you're right. Yeah, she tells terrible jokes. Which reagent? Oh, checking me yet again. Okay, which one was the purple one? There's a clue in the name, crystal violet. So I'm going to go there. Brilliant. I love how Dr. One celebrates the wins and really, I don't know. Dr. One is kind of the voice of the scientist in the lab, and the way that her voice is written, or the way that she's scripted, is to be as encouraging and positive as possible. So if the student, we try and celebrate the wins of the student, even if it's just one quiz question, you know, that positive motivation, positive discipline around celebrating every little win that we can without being too over the top with it. but it can just help keep that motivation up as we go through, especially a longer simulation. So crystal molecules are bound. Excellent. Now then, the microscope's been reset. Let's check the negative control. Select the negative control. And we're going to have a look. Okay, those ones are looking pretty pink to me. Excellent. What happens if I click here? Nothing. I thought I'd just have a little look around. Okay. Cool. Everything's looking pink. Yes, I'm good. Let's carry on. Lower the lab pad, click view image. Right. Is the negative control properly stained? Now, negative control, a gram-negative bacteria, no peptidoglycan wall, no crystal violet binding after washing, so it stains pink. Yes, so it's gram-negative. Oh no, I pressed purple. Oh no! Oh no, I clicked the wrong one. No,
There
okay,
goes our
let's try
perfect score.
again. Damn. Okay, but the cool thing is, when you get a question wrong, there's a little hint. So right now I can go back, I can look at the image, I can consider why maybe I got it wrong. I can even go back to the theory. So if I did think that the negative control should be purple, I can just check in with the theory and be like, have I actually got that wrong in my head? Oh yeah, I've totally got that wrong in my head. The negative should be pink. It should be pink, not purple. So I can go back, I can continue. It's okay. It's gram-negative, it appears pink. Gram-negative appears pink. Got there eventually. Brilliant. Oh no, that perfect score. And I tell you what, the amount of feedback that we get from students where they're like, I want to play again because I want to improve my score is unreal. There's quite a bit of competition about getting through the simulation with a perfect score. But you know, sometimes that little bit of extrinsic motivation can be a real driver to help engage with something and develop that mastery within a topic. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to have that little competition with yourself.
It's fun too. It's very fun.
Yeah, for sure. Which reagent? Safranin. Brilliant. Got it. Okay, last one. So we verified our controls are good. They're resetting the microscope image. Let's take a look at the patient sample. Okay, so we've got a smear. Oh my word, that's very pink. That's big. I've not seen something like this before. If I was a student, I'd be like, this looks odd. What are the purple dots? Why are there purple dots? Are they pink dots or are they purple dots? I think they're pink. They look kind of pink. What's that? Okay, cool. So I've had a good look. Yeah, finished. Let's make a conclusion. Right, show time. Which circle contains the bacteria? So I'm going to assume that these big cells with the big nuclei, they are regular human cells, and these tiny little cells, because I know about bacteria being smaller than human cells, these must be the bacteria. So I'm going to assume that B is the bacteria. Yes, still got it. How would you describe the bacteria found in the CSF sample? Well, to me, they look bright pink, as opposed to that darker purple. I'm just going to check the theory and have another look. Let me just have a look. Positive and negative control. Let's have another look. Oh no, where is it? How they work. Images. Okay. Little clue at the bottom there. Oh my word. Pink. Okay, so if they're pink, that must mean that they haven't taken the purple stain, so they must be gram-negative. Yes! Excellent. So we have now successfully identified that we have a gram-negative bacteria in the CSF fluid. I am a gram stain master. Yes, I am a gram stain master. And the student can celebrate their little win of getting through the simulation. They've got a little boost from Dr. One. Continue. Love it. Okay, one last question. Do you feel like you've gained relevant knowledge? Well, I know what's pink and purple now, so I'm going to completely agree. Excellent. The student gets showed one final thing as a score. You can see that I dropped 2 points by getting that quiz question wrong one time.
We're going to have to make that up somewhere.
I know, I'm going to, oh my word. I'm so embarrassed. Yeah, but it gave me an opportunity to show you what getting a quiz question wrong, what it does, how it shows the theory, how it allows you to go and like check your knowledge and actually perform that right. So we dropped 2 points. If we completed the quiz question wrong again, we'd lose another 2 points until I think a maximum, I would have to check, but I think it's a maximum of 10 you can lose. So you don't go into negative scoring. You have the opportunity to gain 10 points with every quiz question, but getting it wrong multiple times means that you'll get no points eventually. And that is a playthrough of our fantastic gram stain identification bacteria that introduces us to the topic, allows us to get to know the stain on a biochemical level, helps us understand why it's a good differentiator stain and how that works on a molecular level, and then takes us through an applied example of how the stain can be used to differentiate cells in a patient sample. So that is that, and I will click back, and I will be out of the simulation. So the way to exit is just to press escape, and we are through. I hope you enjoyed playing that simulation with me. It's good fun. I love the gram stain.
Awesome.
It's a pretty lab technique. And I would hope that after playing this simulation, a student could either be empowered to kind of know what they're doing if they were then to go on to do this in a wet lab, or for example, if a student had to take time out and they've missed their practical, this can be a way for them to gain some practical knowledge, even if they weren't able to attend in class. So while it's by no means a lab replacement, it's certainly better than nothing to kind of help our students gain those practical experiences and understand the procedural um, context of these techniques in practice. So all round, top notch, great little short simulation, in my opinion. I love it.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much, SJ. I really appreciate it. I love seeing you work through these simulations, and I don't remember quite being that fun when I was in microbiology, but
It's a good
it
one. I love it.
it is a good one. It is very good one.
What's
Okay.
interesting about the gram stain as well, one other thing is that some of the reagents that we use, they're not the nicest environmental things. And by doing the training with using the simulated lab, we can actually reduce the ecological impact of doing this training. So if we're using the stains only once or twice, for example, in the wet lab, but we've given the student the opportunity to fail and fail well in the simulation,
Hmm.
you know, that can only have really positive environmental impact and reduce the
Yeah.
amount of glasses that we're chucking away. So all around, and a really good benefit for the sims.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Thank you again, SJ. I really appreciate it. And so, what we want to do at this point is we want to hear from our audience and take any questions from anybody that has been watching this, and this can be a range of questions from maybe something on how the simulations work, the topics of what simulations we offer, anything and all around that you want to put into the questions chat. That would be wonderful, and we'll be more than happy to answer those as we go along here. However, I also like to be able to give you guys an opportunity to get in touch with us. This simulation is available until September 30th, and there's a link here, and I think that one of the panelists can drop the link into the chat to give you guys an opportunity to fill out the form, get an opportunity to win prizes, and let me see if I can do that for you guys as well. If I can just go ahead and drop that in there, or if there's somebody on the back end that can do that as well, that would be wonderful. I think there it is right there. There it is right there. So you guys go ahead and feel free to fill that out and get an opportunity to win some prizes. You may think there's a little bit of a raffle. Is that right, SJ? Yeah, I think there is some money for suppliers and whatnot. But then we also get an opportunity to give you guys or make this simulation available for until September 30th. But I would also urge that you reach out to us and let us know if there's something that we can do if you're not comfortable answering any questions here.
Absolutely, and feel free to take a note of the URL that I was just shared in the chat for the play link. That one you can just use as is. So if you want to play this along with some students and get their feedback, or just play it with them and see how they respond to it, like, now's your chance. Like, let them play it, let them go through it, let them give you good, like, talk you through like their experience of it. Like, you're always welcome to share that feedback with me, or share it with one of our team just through the emails that we've contacted you previously. But yeah, that might be really helpful to give you a more vantage over whether or not this is something you'd feel comfortable using in your sessions, in your learning sessions with the students, or even just see how they respond to it. Yeah, it's really important to get the students.
What I'm going to do is I'm sorry, Shay.
No, please.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to share my contact information on the screen here. Do you want me to put your information in there as well, Shay?
Yeah, of course. That's fine.
Okay.
Lovely.
Excellent. And so we'll make sure we get that out to you. But if you guys have any questions, please feel free to, go ahead and, drop them in the chat or reach out to us at any time.
Sure. That Gram-stain simulation as well, just while people are maybe thinking of their questions, is it's actually part of a larger suite. So there's some longer simulations and some alternative simulations that are a little bit shorter as well, that go through different aspects of it. So building the peptidoglycan wall and looking at the different elements that are in the bacterial cell wall, that's one component of it. And also physically doing the Gram-stain procedure is another simulation too. So if you feel that this identification simulation doesn't quite fit with how you would like to teach, know that there are options. So you can take them through the procedure step by step, or you could there's a longer simulation too that goes through multiple parts. So you would do the ID, you would do the cell wall building, and you would do the Gram-stain itself. So lots of different ways to use the Labster simulations in this particular setting, and lots of different activities that can be used for the same kind of topic, which is cool.
Very cool. And there's a couple questions here that we'll get to. Question from Deborah: are there different levels, and are they geared to NGSS? And the answer is yes. There are different levels to these simulations. NGSS, AP, IB, university, college levels. What I would do is my email is showing up on the screen there. If you'd like to email me, I can put you in touch with the right person that can give you free access to the simulations, allow you to play through. I think, what do we have now? About 220? Are we up to 220 total simulations now?
Wow.
Yeah. And I think this time last year we were about 150, 149 or something like that. So we're moving right along. Every quarter we're releasing anywhere from a dozen to 20 new simulations, varying from different times from 5 minutes to 55 minutes. So there are different links as well as varying levels. So again, just go ahead and email me, and I will get you in touch with the right person or provide access to those to the catalog for you guys to play through. Question from Jem.
Oh, I just wanted to add something really shortly about the NGSS
Oh, yeah.
as well. It's just when we are looking to ideate on our high school offer, so making those simulations that are specifically targeted to high school, we are actually looking at the framework, the next generation framework, to guide what it is that we put into those simulations. So the NGSS standards are actually right there at the beginning. When we're first putting our specifications together for building the sims, we are looking to kind of make sure our simulations are culturally relevant and that they match the frameworks that teachers need in order to use them in their classrooms. So yeah, always happy to have a conversation about that. Thanks so much, Chris, for making space for that.
Sure. Yeah, and then there's another question here from Jen, and it says, thanks for the data comparing Labster simulations and lecture versus lecture only. Do you have data to compare how Labster sims perform versus in-person labs? And correct me if I'm wrong, Miss Jay, I don't think that they were really meant to replace in-person labs. So I don't know if that was a comparison that was originally done.
No, it was more in a support. So we do have, I think, the Kransky paper from 2019. I might have the year wrong, forgive me, but it's definitely listed on our website, where we looked at simulations as a pre-lab exercise, whether or not they prepared students to be successful in the wet labs. So that research has been done to look to see whether or not the simulation can scaffold and support practical skill acquisition and retention. So I would totally encourage you to go and check out that paper. In summary, Labster really helps prepare students to perform at their best in the wet lab. But the posit is that one, they're getting an exposure to the procedural knowledge, but two, anything we can do to kind of lessen the cognitive load for a student entering the lab in the first instance. It's a very strange environment if you've never been in there before. The sights, the smells, the wearing of unusual clothing, to engage with things, and also gloves. Like, what's this all about? My hands feel funny. Um, you know, having one less thing to worry about when you're going into that slightly new and strange environment can only be a positive thing. But yeah, check out that paper. Listed on our website. If you just click on research on the homepage, there's a whole load of our Nature Biotech papers there. There's a few simulations looking at professional training as well. Sorry, there's a paper looking at professional training as well, which I think is our most recent research offering. Lots to look at and dive into on that page.
Nice. I like that. Thank you. Thank you. We've got two more here. I think, SJ, this one's definitely for you. At what point do students get feedback if they select the wrong reagent or step? Is it immediate?
There's lots of different ways that feedback is given.
Yeah.
So it depends on the type of, this is fun, now I get to nerd out a little bit about feedback. For example, if it's just a simple step and that the student has to pick up a particular thing in order to move forward, and it's not a very high value task or step, then we'll get immediate feedback in the form of a bing bong noise. It goes boop boop, that's the wrong thing to do. If it's just a case of finding the right thing and they have to hover to find out which is the right element, then there's some kind of immediate sound feedback, which is also visual as well. Sometimes you get a little cross appearing on the screen. So that's one way of giving simple feedback on a low value task. There are other ways that feedback's given. So in some learning activities where it's more of a constructive activity or a building activity, maybe the feedback comes later. So you have to set up a few parameters and then press submit to see if you've done right. And you'll get feedback like, oh, are you sure that's correct? Or maybe this is in the wrong position. So in a constructive based activity that's a little bit higher stakes, that immediate feedback isn't appropriate. We need to help the student unpick where they might have gone wrong, so the feedback's a little bit more subtle. And further on again, one of my favourite simulations for user feedback and instructional design is our behavioural thermoregulation lab. A little bit advanced maybe for some courses, but in this simulation you have to keep a little animal alive called a gexie. It's on our planet Asticos 4, which we invented to try and teach some ecological parameters. But in the behavioral thermoregulation lab, you have 10 kind of clicks to keep this gexie alive. So you have to make sure that it stays at the right temperature, that it doesn't spend too much time out in the sun. So it has to be in the sun to get warm, but if it's out in the sun too long, it also gets got by the eagle that's trying to eat it. And it has to be in the shade a little bit to keep its temperature cool, so getting the right balance. But it also has to venture out into the open to drink water. So you have to balance all the parameters of heat, food, water, and shelter to keep this animal alive. And it's on like a hot day, and then it's on a cold day, and how that behavioral piece has to change in order to keep cold-blooded animals alive and how they regulate their temperature. The feedback in this case is that the gexie either dies, it gets got by the eagle, or it dehydrates. So the feedback in this case is all around, oh, maybe I needed to be out in the open more and stay warmer because I died because I got too cold. Or if you get got by the eagle, it's like, okay, maybe I needed to stay in the shade a little bit more. I spent too long out. I got found by my prey animal and I got eaten. So in that way, the feedback is a little bit more sophisticated because the learning goal in that case is how to balance the parameters, or how parameters are balanced in this example of thermoregulation. A really beautiful piece and one of my favourite examples of a Labster simulation, working really hard to create positive mental models for students in really complex topics.
Very cool. Thank you very much, SJ.
As well. Such a pretty simulation. Definitely go and check it out.
We have a question from Whitney. Can you see when, date and time, the students view the simulations? And the answer is yes. We integrate into a number of major LMSs. We also have our own in-house LMS called Course Manager that provides a teacher dashboard. And that will give you insight into the students' progress of the simulations, their scores. And I believe time to completion. Is that correct, SJ?
I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Our follow-up question from Jen. thanks for the clarification. So the data you showed, did that also include wet lab work?
If you could skip back to that slide, Chris, I'd be happy to take a quick look and explain further, if that's okay. I think the data that you showed was from the lecture. Okay, this is lecture versus lab stuff.
Yeah, this was so lecture.
This was on a concept-based scenario, so it didn't cover actual lab-based teaching. This particular information is from our Nature Biotech 2014 paper, I believe. Yeah, Nature Biotechnology 2014. This is looking at administering a lecture and then a labster simulation, and then following up with a test to see how well knowledge was retained. So it was either lecture first, then labster, or labster first and then the lecture. And then the mid-tests were testing for knowledge retention after a single learning activity took place. So the pre-test was one test, then they had a single teaching experience, so either labster or the teaching, the traditional lecture. Then the post-test is after both of those scenarios, and the retention is further down the line. So you can see in the mid-test, if you had labster first, there was a faster uptake of the knowledge. So in the mid-test, they performed slightly better with labster, but then after both experiences have been had, then the knowledge was synergistic. So they managed to achieve even more learning and have greater retention with both, demonstrating that labster is a great supplement to the existing didactic teaching scenarios. But if you check out the research page, you can find a few more papers where we've used different scenarios that are more related to wet lab work. So have a look.
Yeah, I think Cal State Northridge is one of those that they were using us in both in their intro to bio courses prior to COVID, and one of the reasons that they turned to us during COVID was that they saw that the pass-fail rate went from 20% to 5%, and that was one of the big data points that they used to justify why they wanted to make it labster available to all 23 of their campuses, not only for COVID but beyond the horizon of COVID, if we do get to that point.
Sure. I hope that was helpful, Jen. If there's anything else I can do to clarify, you can always drop me an email. My email address is similar to Chris's. It's just Boulton, BOULTON @labster.com. More than happy to follow up with you on this if you'd like. Feel free.
Great. Perfect. So I think we're right at time here now. So I want to say, first of all, thank you very much, SJ. It's been an absolute pleasure doing these presentations and workshops with you. And I want to thank all of you guys who tuned in. Again, please feel free to reach out to either one of us with any questions or requests for information. And with that, thank you very much. Everybody have a wonderful day.
See you later. Bye.
Bye-bye.